Before I start talking about the Houston Chronicle, I just want to address this notion of legacy newsrooms not getting digital. Because I've been around a while, and I'm going to show my age, I started at the Raleigh News and Observer when they had launched one of the very first online newspapers. It was called the Nando Times. Does anybody here remember the Nando Times? In 1994, my reporters were writing breaking news stories for the Nando Times covering elections online. But the problem with our newsrooms, as most of you who have worked in them probably understand, is that we have this tremendous beast called the print newspaper. And the print newspaper has a way of gobbling everything up. And the challenge that we have had for years is steering people away from print and into these beautiful new platforms out there, which are great vehicles for engaging new readers and new audiences. So in my newsroom, so I came to Houston in the fall of 2013. And we have a somewhat different challenge than some of these other newsrooms. We have a two-site strategy. And the two-site strategy is something that has come from the top of Hearst. Hearst is a big investor in BuzzFeed. And they wanted a free site that was free and buzzy and engaging and would engage the millennials. But they wanted to have eat their cake too. They wanted a paid subscription site, which was behind a hard wall that you would pay for as well. So one site has fun and lively and engaging and, at one point, most of the breaking news. And the other site was all this serious, heavy, hard journalism. And when I first got there, that was pretty much all they were doing with that. And it has created a terrible culture war in the newsroom. So I have this group over here, the producers and writers for the free site, and they're looking for their audience, and they're doing fun, and they're doing slideshows, and they're breaking news, and they were very actually ahead of the game in using social to identify stories and going after their audience there. And then I had these serious journalists over here going, what are you people doing? And you don't understand news, and you're denigrating our brand, and we're out here doing the real journalism. And, oh, by the way, we don't really have to worry about that digital thing because they're doing it, right? So my job when I came in was to try to find a way to bridge this gap, and it has been quite the challenge. So we have now moved to a different strategy. Part of the challenge in the culture wars was that for several years, the free site was chasing clicks at all costs, because those of you who understand digital revenue know that there's a lot of passive revenue that can come through clicks. So slideshows, for example. We gave comics away for free because we got passive revenue there. But that also led them down some roads that I was uncomfortable with. And then on the other side, we had people who never measured their audience, didn't measure how many clicks they were getting, didn't know whether the was, as Katie was talking about, translating into subscriptions. So we have, in the last 6 months, changed our strategy, and we're still in the midst of implementing this. So the free site is going to be our funnel for readers who we are going to use to toggle over and try to convert into subscribers. We are moving away from chasing clicks at all costs to chasing what I think we all understand is a value in our markets, which is the loyal, unique visitor who comes back multiple times. Because if you are producing content for that person and they become more and more attached to what they're reading, you're going to be able to, as the business side will tell you, pull them down a subscription funnel and eventually get them to engage. So the free site is, there are producers there. There are 15 to 20 producers, plus some content folks who go after some of the more fun top restaurants, foodie stuff, entertainment. They are continuing to do that. We're moving away from anything that resembles clickbait that isn't part of our journalism, and putting more of the content that now was behind the very hard wall here to see what engages readers. So we can measure what they're reading, what's keeping them on the website, what we need to do more of, what would actually get them to jump over and become a digital subscriber. We are sharing, on the other side then, We are giving new engagement tools on the premium site. One of the biggest problems, we call it, that's the paid site, is it has been behind a true hard wall. And so what have we done? We have shared all of this content out socially to get past the wall. So we share our content on Facebook and Twitter, and we do Instagram and all of that. So it is a growing audience. Both sites are successful, by the way. The Cron website is the #1 news site in the market, and the HoustonChronicle.com website is the #4 news site in the market. But now we are moving towards, on the premium side, we're going to have a meter which will allow you to sample the content, which you haven't really been able to do unless we shared it out socially. And we're going to have an engagement tool that allows us to build and cater to different audiences, so we can experiment at a very micro level and see what audiences are engaging with what content, where we might want to turn the needle a little bit more. You can really customize this to a great degree. This will start on May 1st. And will really open up sort of a new era in the relationship between our two sites and the rest of the newsroom. But some of it has to be on how we all work too. So if you remember, I said there was this group over here who said, "Oh, we don't have to worry about digital; they've got it covered." We are moving to training everybody on the same analytics and engagement tools in the newsroom that our producers have always had. So some of the resentment that went on in our newsroom was we had a team of folks who, they were measured by how much content they generated. Their success was measured on how much audience they pulled in. They paid a lot of attention to their audience. They would complain over here, "You're not paying any attention to your audience. You folks can spend days and days working on a story." That's true, and they still will, without having any sense of whether anybody's reading that, and that was true. So now we are very deep in the process of giving everybody their metrics so that you can see who's engaging with your content, some audience engagement tools. We have Chartbeat for the moment. We want to move to something else. Everybody had their training last week. So now every journalist in the newsroom is paying attention to their audience, trying to understand who's reading their content, who's not reading their content, what content isn't getting any engagement at all. So one of the things that we did was we pulled the metrics for all of the stories for a couple of months. And what we found, won't be too surprising to some folks, was that some of the content that we thought people were really engaging with, they weren't. We found that the big breaking news stories got a lot of engagement. The big investigations got a lot of engagement. And then we found what was sort of the murky middle, in which case, nobody's really reading that much. So why are we spending so much time there? But you got to be careful here, because here's one of my lessons. One of the things that people weren't paying attention to in Houston were stories of immigration and detention. That was before the election. Those stories now get high engagement. So I think you have to pay attention to what stories are hot, to know, when your audience is engaging with it, and when it's time to sort of turn around and reassess what's working and what's not working. So as we give everybody these new tools and turn them all into one team using the same metrics and the same goals, we hope to unite as a newsroom and not be this very angry, you're doing this group. We're taking the decision of what's free or paid off the table, and we're saying to every journalist, regardless of what their job is, your job is just to create great content or great journalism. And we'll decide, is this something that's supposed to be free? Is this something that we're going to ask people to pay for? Is this something that's going to go on Facebook? Is this something that we're going to put on a different platform? You don't have to worry about that. We'll work with you on your stories. We'll work with you on the different complementary pieces that go with it. Every major story will have a social media component or other digital components. But you don't sit there and think, oh, I'm on the free team or I'm on the pay team. So reporters are going to be making decisions about what makes the most sense for them. And yes, they're going to do some fun content, because every beat should have some fun content. And yes, they're going to do some of the meat and potatoes of the beat reporting. And yes, they will be doing heavy investigative stories as it makes sense. And then the producers are going to work together to toggle readers back and forth from one side to the next. So if we say we have, for example, one of our big pieces a week or so ago was investigation. This was actually a very serious investigation into why a serial rapist had been allowed to go for free for so long in Houston. And the fact was they had arrested him over and over again. But he was raping homeless women, and they just didn't pay much attention to trying to get him through the system until the prosecutor jailed a homeless woman in order to get her to testify, and then people cared. But this story, we worked on free components. We had videos that went on the free site that toggled you over to the paid site to get you to engage with this major investigation. And this is how we see these two sites working back and forth. One being a big audience funnel that will draw the readers down into the sort of the neck of the funnel, and there's where we hope to engage them and get them to subscribe, because growing digital subscriptions, as some of you will hear repeatedly, is a major goal for us, and it's a major goal for every newsroom in America, because people giving up print, we still need their consumer revenue, and we need them to subscribe to our digital products. All right, Neil.